Welcome to Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. Improving weather coming as we head through the second half of this week and into the start of the weekend. We're back to fair weather. Temperatures will rebound a little bit. It'll be just basically typical mid-October weather, chilly nights, cool but sunny to partly sunny days. And a series of Pacific fronts are queued up to move into the second half of the weekend and into early next week. Now, over the last 2 weeks, these past 2 weeks, western precipitation has really increased. It's been a much more wet October. In fact, a direct opposite of last year in October. And that is bringing a little drought relief to some. And there's more relief coming for some in the western United States here before the month is over. So that's encouraging news. It's not eliminating the drought, but putting some dents in it. Here's today's satellite photo. You can see the low as of early this morning was over south central Nebraska. Yesterday at this time, the center of the low was about here. Yesterday, it took a little jog south before going northeast, and that actually brought some of the heavier moisture with the system further into southeastern Wyoming and western Nebraska than expected. This system was a great rain producer. Some areas near Lander, Wyoming got nearly 2 inches of water. Casper, Wyoming, well over an inch of water. A really good shot in the arm. And if we were to look at some areas, I'm just going to pick some locations here, mainly across Wyoming, to show you where there's been improvement over the last year in the drought. Some areas where there hasn't been much improvement and there's a long way to go. But look at Casper, Wyoming, a record amount of rain and snow yesterday, just under 1.25 inches for the year. Casper is just over 13 inches. Normal value is just short of 11 inches. So Casper's actually 2.5 inches above normal for the year. But look at last year. At this time last year, Casper was still short of 5 inches. So the drought in 2020 was much worse than it is now, at least in central Wyoming areas near Casper. But that was such a big deficit last year that we still have some catch up to doing. So if you're around that central Wyoming area, you've done better. Rapid City is another area. For the year, very close to average, just a little bit below, but way ahead of last year. So Rapid City's had some improvement. Look at Rapid City for the month so far, over 2.5 inches. Then you go into Buffalo, Wyoming, a real enigma. As you get into north central Wyoming, we've got pockets of really dry weather. So while the month-to-date precipitation's above normal in the Buffalo area, they're just short of 6 inches for the year, which is half of where they should be. And actually, 2021 is worse than last year at this time in the Buffalo area, which is only about 150 miles from Casper. But you tend to see this in drought situations, especially when you start to leave a drought. You'll get these islands where it's wet, islands where they're dry, and over time, the islands of dryness go away. Evanston, Wyoming is an area in southwestern Wyoming that's still suffering. Even though Evanston's had a good month so far, look at that. There's still 2.5, just less than that for the year. Better than what we had last year, but still well short of average. Cheyenne is another location where conditions are better than a year ago, almost 5 inches better than a year ago, but still a little bit below average for the year. So we have seen improvements in the drought conditions, and this is something you tend to see when you start to get at the end of a drought period in the West. You get islands of wetness intertwined with islands of dryness, but eventually the islands of wetness will grow, and we're hoping that'll be the case as we head into 2022. And if you look at the latest Drought Monitor, this was as of a week ago from today, we're likely going to continue to eat away in some of these red areas here and some of these red areas here, as well as even into California. We'll talk about that here in a moment. We're looking at the weather pattern later this month and next week getting more busy again. So here we are today. The upper level low is going to be moving out by afternoon up into Minnesota and Iowa, moving away. Then as we get on into Friday and the weekend, we have an area of high pressure building in, bringing a mild air mass in. But you see all this blue up here in the Aleutians, the Gulf of Alaska, very, very cold air up here is forming. And as we talked yesterday, really strong jet stream winds are forming along this contrast between the warm and the cold. By Saturday afternoon, we see a frontal system getting pushed into the Pacific Northwest. It'll move quickly through the Rockies, moving in by Sunday and Monday. And then as we get on into Monday, a sharper, stronger front comes into California with really strong jet stream winds and into the Pacific Northwest. And this will blast its way into the central Rockies by Tuesday and Wednesday. Notice the cold that's building. Now, this is by next Friday, the 29th. Just want to show you the cold that's building up. Anywhere you see gray here, those are below zero temperatures. So below zero temperatures becoming more common up here in the Northwest Territories and the North Slope of Alaska. And look over here into Russia. We've got a lot of some really cold air building up as well. So when you have a situation like that, and you see all of this cold air up here, when you get a pocket of cold air that's spinning around up here, it becomes basically a front factory. It becomes a way to send a lot of frontal systems into the western United States, as long as that pocket of really cold air here in the fall season sits up there, and we're expecting it will in the longer term. Now, part of that is driven by what we discussed yesterday, the sea surface temperature conditions across the Pacific. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit to show you why we're getting a front factory building in the North Pacific right now. So here are the sea surface temperature anomalies. This is pretty darn cold relative to average temperatures in the Gulf of Alaska, and this is pretty warm relative to average in the North Pacific. This contrast in temperature is going to help maintain this deep area of low pressure that'll be sitting up here in the Gulf of Alaska for the next week or two. The end result, strong and intense jet stream winds will be driven into the western United States. This is something that did not happen at all last year. Last October just did not come together to bring colder, wet weather to the western United States, and was really part of the problem with the extended fire season last year and the dry start to the winter season. This was a different situation last year. We did not have it. The sea surface temperatures up here were warmer than average in this area here, while La Nina continued down south. So there's a big difference this fall compared to last fall. And if you were to look at the next 10 days of precipitation, anywhere you see purple in these areas, you're talking about the models seeing in excess of possibly 10 inches of water over the next 10 days. And deep into the areas along and east of the mountains, east of the Cascades, we're also going to see some moisture driven in. This is a pattern in the fall and early winter that could really cause this part of the United States, at least in the mountains, to have a really good start to the snowpack season, and maybe including the Bighorns, possibly including the north central mountains of Colorado and southern Wyoming as well, and also the Wasatch. So we're likely going to jumpstart the snowpack season a bit earlier than we did last year, and that's good news. If you were to focus in on just California, that onshore flow of that cold, moist Pacific air is just great for central and northern California and the Sierra Nevada. Sierra Nevada models are seeing upwards to 2 feet or more of snow over the next 10 days up in the high Sierras, and then pushing into the Great Basin as well. Thanks for listening to watching the Day Weather Podcast. Have yourself a good Wednesday.